Yeah.
Like, the first 2 weeks is when you're, like, getting back used to it. Your body has to adjust to it again. You're figuring out eating, a good schedule, you know.
Mm-hmm.
If you stay consistent after the first 2 weeks, it's just, I think that's usually when I see people fall off after, like, 2 weeks. I mean, people quit all the time, I guess, but, like...
Right.
Usually, I think for people who are trying to start and build a consistent, like, gym schedule, if you can make it through those first 2 weeks, you'll be all right.
Yeah.
So, what are we talking about today?
Well, it took a long time to decide what we were going to talk about, but it started off with something seasonal, which you wouldn't know it to look behind us, but it was fall.
That tree's kind of orange.
Yeah, it's getting there. There's some yellow sprinkled throughout there.
These are all pines, though, so.
Yeah, a lot of them. But you can kind of see a little bit of yellow out there.
But it's getting chilly.
Hopefully.
It was down in the 40s today. That's cold.
Yeah, this morning it was. Now it's what? Low 70s, maybe?
Yeah. Which, out here, that's fall.
Yeah. But in thinking about that, we were also thinking about, so back in school when we were both in college, fall was the main time for our camping adventures.
Oh, yeah.
And also for me growing up, my family would go camping in the fall a lot. Probably more than the summer, to be honest, but we would go in the summer too. But it's definitely got a fall sort of feeling about it. For me, that kind of association, especially since we were in Missouri.
Oh, yeah.
So, not just camping, but, outdoor things in general.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about the great outdoors. I think some of our experiences, like you were saying.
Yeah.
All sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
We had some really fun times camping out there. We should throw in some clips of us camping in the Ozarks or somewhere around there.
Yeah, we have a pretty fun video. Is it still up on your channel? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We have a good video of one of our trips. With like a lot of cool drone footage and stuff. We're hoping to do stuff like that again. We don't have a drone, I don't think now.
Rest in peace, the drone.
Rest in peace, the drone. But we were talking about doing a trip and kind of doing mini podcasts kind of in between scenes of just camping and what we're doing and the outdoor stuff we're doing.
Yeah. Stoic Smoke Station goes camping.
Yeah, something a little more maybe aesthetic than what we're doing now, something a little more artistic with the shots and everything. But still having like the podcast. That'd be fun. But yeah, we had a lot of really fun times while we were out there. The coolest part about it was the first time I'd done camping, like not at a campsite. So where we had to carve out our own site, which was cool because then it didn't cost us any money, except what we brought in materials and the gas to get there. But I had a little Suzuki 4-door hatchback that we would drive into the woods as far as we could make it between the trees, and then just Walmart machete our way through the brush.
Those never did last.
They did not. No, we would have to buy new ones every time. They barely lasted through the period of time that we had to use them.
It's like they were made out of aluminum or something.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. Granted, I mean, we hit a lot of rocks while we were chopping up those weeds and whatnot, but that's kind of what you have to do. So, I mean, I'm sure they're not really made for hitting rocks. But yeah, there was some really good stuff. We went out there with big groups, with just... Did we ever go... We went just us two, like, the first time, I think.
Yep, in my Infinity.
Yeah.
My little Infinity
which
sedan.
Not super in love with the dirt roads and such. I don't think we drove your Infinity off-road.
I mean, it was dirt trails, you know?
It was.
Not
we didn't
proper
drive it into the
off-roading,
woods,
but...
though. Into the woods. But it did surprisingly well. In that, like, it got us in and out, which was more than I really could have asked of it.
Yeah. Crazy. It was much colder there in the fall.
Yeah. Yeah. We did some winter camping, too, which was fun. We got snowed on one time while we were hammocking.
Okay. Here you go. Here's a good little podcasty question.
Sure.
What's the appeal of camping? Or what's the appeal to you of camping?
Yeah. Well, whenever I think about camping now, I think back to there was a point when it was just you, me, and Addison we were camping, and we were driving back to school after that might have been the one we filmed. It was like a long camping trip.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were out there for a while, to the extent that you almost start to get used to it.
Yeah.
Which is fun. And on the way back, Addison said something like, back to the real world or whatever. And one of us said something like, we're getting out of the real world. Or we're leaving it behind.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is a good summary of what camping does. It feels like it, I don't know, makes you remember sort of the brass tacks of life on Earth. Like, this is what it all is at the foundation of it, right? Is just kind of being in the world and working and cultivating it so that you can live.
Yeah.
And, we're pretty far away, usually, in our normal lives here in the West from the sort of main things of, getting food, getting shelter, whatever. And, of course, the work that we do is all for that purpose, but it's just more detached, I guess.
Yeah.
In a way that, I guess in sort of a capitalist sense, right? We're not even in the Adam Smith vision. We're drifting more towards the Karl Marx critique of capitalism, kind of the way that we have it, where everything's separated and far from the purposes for which it's being done.
Yeah.
Camping undoes some of that.
His main criticism, Marx's criticism of capitalism, one of them was that you take the personhood out of the tasks being done, right? They just become almost like numerical, systematized tasks.
Yeah.
Which, for the sake of capitalism, makes things run more efficiently, right?
Right.
If you have an expertise in a much smaller area, and then you have 50 experts that could make that one product in seconds because they all just do a little piece of it. For the sake of assembly lines and mass production of many things at affordable rates, that's the way to do it, and it optimizes your time. Unfortunately, it does seem that he's right, though. It takes, it's not artisan crafted, right? It's not handmade by an individual that has this love and endearment to it.
You're not involved in so many aspects of the process. Or one person isn't involved in so many aspects of the process.
So you think getting away from that from time to time is nice?
Yeah, and I think we all are in that to some extent. And maybe it's not such a bad thing for material prosperity and all that, but but when you're camping, you have to do everything.
Oh yeah.
You have there's no task that and anybody else is going to do for you. It's just you and whoever you bring with you.
Yeah. Sometimes those people don't do anything, but
yeah, that's true. That is unfortunately true. We did have a couple of times where we brought people that didn't contribute a ton, but
yeah, I definitely love camping for a lot of the same reasons that you mentioned. I think it's refreshing. I think another thing about camping is it's usually really simplistic. Even if you watch guys like Bear Grylls or Outdoor Boys, specifically Outdoor Boys, he has some elaborate meals.
Yeah.
That being said, everything is really simple, and there's something that's nice about that. Another thing that I would relate to it, just to help my example, is like how a lot of us in the West idealize like Japanese culture and the samurai culture, and even their houses, their homes, the way they live. We often, from movies and stuff, and maybe from genuine experiences, see it as being more simple, less things, less clutter, less distractions. And we see that play out in all sort of movies too, even like Star Wars or even like Batman or whatever. We see like these characters that in order to become great, they have to remove distractions. So in Batman Begins, which was the first of like the Dark Knight movies or whatever, we see Bruce Wayne, who's troubled, going through all sorts of mental, disarray and stuff, and he goes to the Eastern world for answers, right? And then he basically becomes like a monk for a little while, removes all distractions, focuses on breathing and working out and like, fighting and concentrating his mind and focusing his mind. And I think camping is like a hard reset for me, because even though we try to implement minimalism and being more conservative and more frugal into our life, a lot of times we still get caught up with like distractions, all sorts of distractions, like everything from paying bills to buying groceries to just making sure everything's clean all the time and running things and going to work and buying this and buying that and pay for this, pay for that. And I don't even know how anything works, I don't know how AC works. I don't know how the internet works. I don't know how my stove works, really. I understand some basic things. I don't know all of the mechanisms that make my car do what it does, and I just spend thousands of dollars on each of those things every year so that I don't have to know, because it's faster and easier and I can make more money if I do that, right? But then it is nice, especially nice, if you're so consumed with all those things like we all are oftentimes, or like if we're on our phone all the time, just scrolling through things constantly, right? Inundated with distractions and stimulation, to then go camping. And even for a brief minute, you can fill your time, sure, and it is filled usually. But like when you get out there, carve out a little spot where you're going to pitch your tent, maybe start a fire. It's just simple.
Yeah.
There's nothing else. There's like 4 tasks to do. They take all of your time, and you're just a part of nature again. And your body starts to change. Your mind starts to change. The way you perceive things starts to change, especially if you make sure to like get rid of your phone and don't bring all of the distractions with you, right?
Yeah.
If you're minimal and you go into it and you bring nothing, then you're just sort of calm. You start to smell the air. You start to think about the birds chirping and rustling in leaves. You start to think about squirrels and deer. You start to think about what's in the woods, the minimal things that are there. You think about the time of day, how much you have left. You think about what that means for you. There's no lights. There's no manufactured artificial ways to keep yourself going. It's not like, oh, well, it's nighttime, better turn the lights on, and I got to work through till 2, so I better drink, an energy drink, and then, well, I got to wake up early, so I'll set my alarm and go to the gym, and then I got to go to work, and like, no. When you're camping, it's, well, how much light is left? Well, boy, I hope I can eat before it gets dark, because that'll be much more complicated if I can't. Everything gets simple. And then when it's dark, everything changes. You start smelling things differently. You start hearing things differently. Every squirrel that runs is like the biggest bear, because your body starts to realize it's like maladjusted to life. And then you start to detox. And that was one interesting thing about our longer camping trip, was after like 3 or 4 days, I think, something like that, we were dialed in, man. Dialed into just like being a human.
Yeah.
Like we could hear things, we could see things. You'd see, a small bird in like 5 trees away, and you could hear it, and you could tell what it was doing. And you could smell the breeze coming in and from where it was coming from. You kind of knew how the night was going to go, what creatures were going to come, what were going to leave. You knew how you were going to be, how long the fires would last, the temperature, the way you were going to sleep, like when the sun would come up. And that was your alarm, and you'd feel it warm your face, especially when it was cold,
Yeah.
Things like that just brought back this sort of complete, simple peace that you just gets lost when you have AC and light bulbs and gas stoves and all sorts of things like that,
Yeah, I've never really thought about it in the terms that you said it there, but I liked what you said about there's so many things in my life that I interact with every day and I don't know how they work. But when I'm camping, I know how everything works.
Yeah.
Like, at least everything I do, I know how it works. I know all the parts of it. I'm in control of all the parts of it. And usually there aren't so many parts.
Yeah. Even cooking's simpler.
Even if you were to make it with more ingredients or more steps or whatever, that's not so much more complicated. You know, like you're not introducing other elements or tools or anything. You're using all the same tools, really. And just sort of bringing something out of that, which is cool. It's cool to be, more the master of your own environment in a way that we're not usually.
Yeah.
And at the same time, be confronted with the fact that you're not in control of everything. There's a lot of things that you're out of control, that are out of your control. But you know, sort of instinctively how to respond to those things or how to anticipate. You learn to anticipate them and kind of be prepared and all of that, which is fun. I think of camping too in a way like working out, because in our, like, let's say you're not training to be a warrior or anything in particular. You're just living, and you want to be, healthy and fit. If you go back a few hundred years, everybody, like, the things of life would keep you fit. The things you have to do every day would just keep you in good shape. There's only so many things you can eat, and they're all probably locally grown and locally hunted, locally killed, whatever. There's X amount of tasks you have to do, and all of them involve walking there and lifting things and whatever. And so there's sort of natural level of hardship about life that we don't have anymore. So even to be a normal person without any particularly active calling, you would be fit. You would be in good shape.
Yeah.
And that's not the case anymore. And so to be an average person and be fit, you have to manufacture hard situations for yourself. You have to you have to subject yourself to hard things in a way that you're not going to encounter on an average day. And camping, I think, is like that, in that we have to manufacture time being outdoors and getting kind of in touch with and aware of the environments that we're in, but we're really not in because of the way we've built our homes and how much we can control the internal environment of our house, versus the external environment around us. And like encountering the beauty too that's just out there in the world, and whatnot, like those types of things. If you're just living what's considered a normal life in the modern day, you're not going to really encounter those things, or at least not nearly to the degree that you would have, say, 300 years ago, whatever, and longer. So you have to manufacture that situation in which you do that. And camping's, I mean, you can go to various levels of extremity with it, but generally speaking, that's the method of resetting, like you said, and of bringing that element back into our lives.
Yeah. I think for myself too, as a young man who grew up and like loved the ideas of the cowboys and the old western movies and all sorts of adventure movies too, camping is like, it's making that a reality. and it's not fake, because sometimes I go to the gym and I feel tough. Sometimes I do some boxing and I feel like I'm, training to become a better fighter, right? I'm not Rocky, but, in some small ways I'm making small improvements. But camping's unique, I think, because you're doing what people have done forever. There's like nothing different, especially if you don't bring much to it. Like if you bring, flint and steel and a knife, you're like, that's as close to the 1,000 years removed from humanity that we are now. It's like that's it. That's as close as you get. And there's something about it that's just cool, man. I romanticize it. It's like the stories I read and the westerns I've watched where you have the rogue, you know, on his horse just riding through trails for thousands of miles, just sleeping under the stars, you know. That, and it's just, sometimes it feels like the world's gotten a lot smaller and there isn't any more mystery left, especially with social media. It just feels like anything you look up and anything, and everything's being shown to you all the time.
Right.
But if you leave it behind when you go camping, it feels like, even if people have been there before, it feels like you're discovering it for the first time, and you are. And maybe you'll discover things that other people haven't, but you get to go out into the wilderness. And it's you and the forces of natures and God, and, you know, it's just wild. And there's something to me that just calls for that. I think it's the reason I love surfing. It's the reason I love adventures. I love camping. You know, I think it's the same reason that men have always explored the unknown. There's something that calls about it. You know.
Yeah, there's like a potential there, maybe. Yeah, something like that. I guess that's sort of the idea, right? The whole order versus chaos idea. You know, that our homes and where we live in our normal circumstances, our environments we're very familiar with, everything behaves in the ways that we expect it to. And maybe there's some improvements that can be made or whatever, but generally it's pretty static. And then when you go out into the woods, and you're like, one of the best things I think about our camping trips in Missouri was we started to get familiar with the area that we were in. And then sometimes once we got familiar with a certain space, we would like change it up and just go to a different one. And there was all new stuff around there.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, sometimes we would just spend half the day just kind of picking a direction and walking around in the area and figuring out what was where and what could be done with the resources that were around us, if there was water, or if there were certain types of wood or whatever. And so kind of bringing something back out of that potential is cool. That's a cool process.
Another thing I thought of was, which, not to dismiss that, I think you're right, but another thing that just came to me was, when I am in this sort of world, like even though it doesn't look like it on camera maybe, but a suburb world or a city world, right? Sometimes I feel like I just disappear, that I'm not really there, and that nobody's really aware of me, even when I'm around people. You know, I'm sort of just standing, being passed by, you know, in restaurants or whatever. But it's strange, after a while, if you're in the wilderness, you know, the woods, not just like a campsite off a beaten trail, but like try to go deep into the wilderness. After a few days, you become more aware of everything that's around you. And you realize that everything around you is very aware of you. You know, animals miles away are aware of you. Yeah. It's so strange. Like, there was a couple nights when we were camping where you could hear coyotes, you know, cackling and moving around us through the night. And through the nights that we were there, they'd get a little closer, sometimes maybe even near to the edge of the camp, and then not really come any closer than that. But they know that you're there. They don't know what you are, but they know that you're there. And you start to realize that all of nature around you realizes you're there. Yeah. In ways that I don't really feel in the city. And maybe that's part of why I feel, you know, almost more grounded or connected when I'm camping. Because I'm aware of things, right? I can see the squirrels and the birds and the trees and all those sorts of things. As well as even the ground beneath my feet and the temperature of the ground. Is things I don't think about, but I think about when I'm camping. Yeah. You know? Yeah. And all those things are thinking about me, you know? All the bugs, all the birds, everything that you hear that you don't see. Like, we're just sitting outside right now hearing birds. I can't tell you where any of them are. But after a few days camping, you're like, there's that bird, you know? Yeah. And then sometimes you're like, where'd they all go? Especially after a good fire. Right.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. I think it's one thing that makes me think of is how I don't know precisely where I got this impression from, but maybe you have a similar impression to me, where in the secular world, let's say, maybe I got this impression from science classes or just listening to different people who are interested in the natural world from a secular perspective talk. But a lot of them seem to speak of humanity in the context that the more they get to know about the universe or the earth and the way it works and all the structures and systems and versions of life and stuff that can be found there, the more like smaller and more insignificant they feel, or the more conscious they are of the fact that they're just a small part of this huge thing. And maybe that's how it feels when you just study it, but when I'm in the woods, I feel like I'm the most important thing there. Like, everything is, and it's not, like, in an arrogant way necessarily, I don't think. I think it's like I have the ability to impact this environment that I'm in a way that nothing else that's here can.
Yeah.
And to master the elements of this in a way that nothing else that's here can. And it kind of feels like some of those things that are there that are alive, like, are almost aware of that.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of entering the hierarchy of creation, that's laid out in Genesis, right? God makes the ocean and the land, and then he makes the plants, and then the animals, and then man as the crowning jewel of creation. And I feel the existence of that hierarchy more when I'm out in the woods. Maybe because I'm more directly participating in the mastering and the stewardship of that environment than I normally am.
Yeah. It is strange, too, to feel so alien when you first enter into, like, the wild.
Yeah.
It almost feel like a baby, but like an alien baby.
What do you mean by that?
Like, everything else just fits so well. Like, when you go to a given environment, like whether it's the mountains or the ocean or, the woods, everything fits. Everything makes sense when you see it there. But, like, when I put an Ethan out there, it doesn't make sense. It's so strange these days. And it's funny, but, like, the longer we spend there, the more we start to make sense in the area. The more it starts to, it starts to feel more natural, feel more organic. But, like, initially, just coming into the area, it's like, it's so strangely, it's so strange, so different. Because, like, all the animals, they look like they belong.
Yeah, well, they've been doing what they've been doing for so long.
Yes, true. But it's just strange. I feel so, like... Which maybe is what you're talking about, too, with, like, the hierarchy. Like, feeling it more is, like, that I'm just different than everything that's there. But I can work with everything that's there,
Yeah,
alongside it.
Yeah, it's not as though... I don't feel... that I'm an enemy necessarily or opposed to the flourishing of the environment, just that I am uniquely powerful, I guess. Yeah. And I'm also more aware also of the limits of my own power, right? Maybe more than I am here, because everything's so easy for me to do. And I realize I can't do those things without some work, like making light or whatever.
Yeah.
But I can do those things in contrast to the other living denizens of the environment.
Yeah.
Who can't. I mean, they maybe have better eyesight than I do or whatever. There's, different advantages they all have, but...
Yeah.
But the connection with the land that is using the resources and building things or...
But, okay, so another question for you is... Why wasn't once or twice or 3 times enough? Like, you learned the lessons you learned from camping. You learned that there's many good things to take away from it. But why do you want to keep on going camping? Do you feel like there's things you've yet to learn, or that there's things you've yet to master, or that you'll reach something at some point that'll be like, man, I could go camping, but now that I've done this.
Some of it is just the exploration point that you were talking about. You know, there's more different lands to be discovered, different techniques to be, like, different resources to use, different whatever. So that's always fun, you know, just to do. But another part of it, when I was talking about it sort of grounding me versus my sort of Western capitalist lifestyle that I normally lead, I feel like maybe like a dog, if you're like sitting on the porch, right, and maybe you don't have a fence or whatever, and your dog's out in the yard, and he'll wander away and go a little further and go a little further, and then eventually like come back. And, you know, he comes back, and then he keeps wandering again and wandering again. And that's kind of what it feels like, as far as, like, the lessons that I learned camping, the reminder of my place in the hierarchy, the reminder of the, like, basic fundamentals of life, and the beauty of God's creation and all of those things, like, they start to sort of drift away. And I need to call myself back to that, like, repeatedly.
See, I thought you were saying the opposite. I thought you were saying you're getting called back to here after getting to explore.
I don't feel called here. I just go,
So you feel as though when you're here, you need to be called back.
Yeah.
Interesting, because that's what I was going to say. I thought that was going to contradict what you were saying.
And in that sense, the dog analogy doesn't work because the dog is going out and exploring things, and versus me, I'm slipping more down the slope of lack of exploration or whatever. But just that sense of, like, constantly calling. Like,
you know what I
back,
think it is really similar to? Because I like what you're saying. I think it's similar to, like, the nostalgic feeling I have for my childhood. Like, the way I think of it is, like, I wish sometimes I could go.
Yeah.
But I'm here. I have to be here sometimes. Because one of the, I think every time we've gone camping, but I know that the last time we went camping, I definitely said that I wish we weren't going back. I wish we were doing it forever.
Yeah.
And I definitely always feel that way when I'm coming back from camping. And when I'm there, I'm not thinking, I wish I could leave.
Right.
You know, it's not like the whole time I'm like, man, I wish I could leave. And then I'm driving away and it's like, oh, no, I wish I was never. No, it's the whole time I wish I wasn't leaving.
Yeah. Definitely.
I love it. I love being in nature. I love the woods. I love the trees. I love the animals. I like the quiet. I like not constantly hearing things like cars or music or advertisements.
Yeah.
I like just listening to the branches move and the squirrels play and chatter. And I like that I still can create things.
Yeah.
You know, which was something you brought up as well. But even things like this handmade, I made with my hands, wooden pipe, right? Out of a tree that we downed, right? I wasn't doing that before we started our camping stuff. Right. But after we started our camping stuff, I got into, like, woodworking, leatherworking, those sorts of things. Like, things that come, like, directly from nature.
Sure.
Because, well, I like working with my hands, and I like being creative. But I realized that, like, sometimes the limitations and the simplicity of certain things allows me to be more creative and to work with it, engage with it more easily.
Okay, so here's a question coming off of that then. If we say that camping is a way to call ourselves back and ground ourselves as we start to drift back away into, I don't know, Western capitalist oblivion, whatever that looks like, then how is it possible to... okay, I'm going to pose two questions here. A, in what ways can we take the lessons of camping and bring them into our own lives, our normal lives, to, like, slow that drift? And then B, would it theoretically be possible to completely halt that drift such that you didn't need to go camping to do that, while still living this kind of life, and while not just camping all the time? Like, is there some kind of in between that would be sufficient?
Yeah.
So those
I think
are,
I'll do the best I can to answer all those questions. I think some young people, especially a lot of people our age, which is really interesting, feel the call and they don't even question it. They do something much simpler. They buy a cheap van or a cheap boat and they just camp.
Yeah.
They camp everywhere. They just live that life. They live in a camper van for years sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, that is about as close as you can get and still have all the basic things, like a set of wheels, you know?
Right.
And like,
a shower maybe.
Yeah, maybe a shower, or like you can get to and from places, which seems like a pretty reasonable thing.
Put a cook stove in the back.
Exactly, right?
Like that,
it's as minimal as you can get where you're still basically a covered wagon. You know, the modern covered wagon.
Right. A gas-powered covered wagon.
Yeah. So there's an appeal there to just do that, to just go into it, to not even think about what it means to try to combine them, to just dive hard, right?
Sure.
And then running it back, I think sometimes I've realized how close we are to camping. Like, it's not quite so far removed as people think. Like, if you took a few things that we think are essential out of homes, you'd be much more connected to the wilderness, right? Like, if your windows were open all the time and you had no central heating or AC, you'd just be living in the climate.
Sure.
And then you're really just a wall away from a tree, you know? And it's like,
Yeah.
that's kind of what camping is. It's close, right? You could become more connected, more integrated if you want. You could bring plants into the home or open the home up more. You could cook and eat all of your meals outside. You could do that. You could have, even in most neighborhoods, they'll allow you to have fire pits or campfires. Like, all of your meals could be over a fire.
Yeah.
You could still create that. You could move in with your extended family and friends and like have this community that's focused around being together and living minimally and simplistically. And I think that's a smooth transition to one of the key elements that I think is present there is minimalism. I think there's a reason that so many monks do it of different religions and disciplines. So many, you know, followers of religions that are all aiming at becoming better people. One of the first things they do is remove everything, strip themselves of everything except for like a set of clothes and maybe a space of the ground that's dedicated for sleeping, right? It's like the starting point for monks of all creeds and religions. And similarly, they do that in the army too. They take everything from you. They take your hair, your identity. They take everything from you and start from the beginning. They reconstruct with simple elements because they only need you to be a certain thing, right? And there's ways that we can bring parts of that into our life without sacrificing everything, and it just takes too long, and we're too bad at it, which is why it's helpful, I think, to strip everything away. Because I could be like, oh yeah, I should be more simplistic, I should be more minimal, I should have less things, right? And I can say it and implement parts of it, but I don't really push myself to do it. Whereas if I, you know, dedicated myself to like a monastic lifestyle or a creed or something that I was like, this is going to make me better. And one of the first things was get rid of everything, which by the way I have. But like even the Christian faith tells us to do that. You know, it's the rich young ruler is told, like, he's like, I've done everything, right? I've lived a good life. I live a sinless life. I do this, that, and the other thing. Am I good to go? And Jesus is like, well, you're wealthy and you have a lot of things. So, and he doesn't even say he's been a bad steward of those things. But then he's like, sell them all, get rid of them, give it to the poor, and you're good. And you can't do it. And all of us, you know, young Christians take that in and we're like, oh, that's so cool story. I don't want to be like that. And then we go back to these like $100,000 homes and $1,000 cars and loans, and we try to keep up with the Joneses, and we're paying for this and paying for that, and before we know it, we've gotten away from the root of even what we say is the most important thing in our life, right? So how can we do better? I think we have to be more simple. Like, get rid of jewelry, get rid of non-essentials, go down to minimal things that don't wear out and break. things that are valuable, right? Like if you had 2 shirts, 2 pairs of pants, and a jacket, and all of them were the best that you could get, like workwear that's going to last for 20 years, even if you're falling down a construction site, you know? Mm-hmm. It's like that kind of stuff. Well, if you only had that stuff, you know it's going to last. It's not super flashy. Those are essential things, mm-hmm. right? And they're good, and they do their job, and they're not distracting. All you got to do is keep them clean. Keep them clean and wear them. Keep them clean and wear them. And it's simple. Yeah. Of course, there's things that are like, you know, you could be more beautiful, you could be this, you could be that. It could be more intentional about its use. But at the very least, if you were to go down to something like that, it's less distracting. You know, which is funny? What we do when we camp.
Yeah, this is a sort of funny connection that I just thought of while you were talking about the clothes, too. Because I was like, just thinking, okay, what are some objections somebody might raise to that? Mm-hmm. And, like, you might say you just enjoy having clothes or whatever, but you also might say, like, oh, you know, for the purposes of appearing well in my community and whatever, having, like, a variety of outfits is considered, like, a good thing, and maybe you don't want to wear the same thing every day because, yeah, I don't know, maybe you just want to look presentable or whatever. And I was thinking about that idea of variety and having to change it up all the time. And, like, what if we didn't do that with a lot of things, but clothing is a good example. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what would I think of that? And one of the sort of ways in which I've experienced that is if you ever play, like, a video game that has, you know, certain characters in it that recur. Like, so maybe, like, Skyrim is a game that comes to my mind. Where there's pretty much whenever you go to talk to that character, they're wearing the same thing. Most games don't change up the outfits. Mm-hmm. And I was like, when I think about that, I like that. Because I'm like, oh, there's this character. It says this about their personality, that they're wearing this thing. And it's just, like, nice to have that familiarity and simplicity about it.
Yeah.
And I feel like we think about variety, I don't know, as people always say, like, variety is the spice of life, right? You've probably heard that.
No, sounds pretty gay.
Well, I've heard it a lot. A lot of people have said that. No. And it is I think about it and I'm like, yeah, but what if the variety came from, like, different people you know, but not that you specifically have to have so much variety.
Yeah.
And maybe you have a few things that sort of identify you, and that's just kind of cool. I don't know. Yeah. But we don't really have that. Certainly not in clothing. Everybody wears, I don't know. Most people I know, I hardly see them wear the same outfit twice. Or if they do, then I've forgotten about it from the previous time because it's been so long.
There's one guy I know, and I'm going to say his name because I love him. And he is this way. And he's taken great measures to be this way. But Zach, I've only ever seen him wear the same style. Like, I wouldn't even call it a style, but I know he's clean, so I don't want to say things like the same set of clothes. But it's the same base set.
Yeah.
It's like a nice pair of sturdy pants. I always compliment them. And a nice plain, like, black t-shirt.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
If it's cold,
every time I've seen him,
it's a black hoodie.
Yeah.
Or jacket, zip-up thing, right? That's all he wears. And nice boots. Like, just brown boots, right? He always looks good. He always smells good. He's always sharp. The clothes fit him well. And it's simple. And he likes it. And I talked to him one time. I was like, you know, why do you dress like this? Because when you get to know him, he has so much flavor.
Yeah.
He's such a character. He's like this brilliant musician. He's got wonderful stories. He's so adventurous, so creative. All of that's there. And so immediately my mind thinks, oh, like, this is an eccentric person. Why wouldn't he have all of these different outfits and styles and crazy shoes and cool shirts? Why wouldn't he wear, like, he's a phenomenal guitar player who can play a variety of different things. Those guys are always wearing different band t-shirts, you know? Yeah. He doesn't. And so I asked him one time why he doesn't, and he was saying that it was like better for his mind to not do that because it didn't make him dress for other people or even for himself. It was just like just to wear. Like, he wasn't thinking about trying to look, you know, super good or sexy for all the girls or, like, to let everyone know that he's a guitar player. He just was dressing. simple and good. And I was like, man, that's really cool. Like, I really liked it. And
that is cool.
one thing that you were talking about video games being that way is that's the way the old world was too, right?
Sure.
You could often tell who someone was based on how they dressed. I mean, that's kind of why priests wear the things that they wear.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, if you were to, like, I imagine the old world like this, right? You probably can't afford tons of clothes. And if you have a specific trade, your clothes are probably kind of focused around that trade.
And somebody's handmade those clothes, probably. That's
exactly.
They're so much more expensive.
Yeah.
Somebody's had to sit there and weave the thing together.
So if you see a blacksmith, you might know he's a blacksmith. Or if you see any given tradesman, you might know that that's what he is.
Right.
And there's something about that that's nice too, you know? And me, personally, as a fireman, I have a uniform that I wear every day to the station, from the station, and while I'm at work. For the 48 hours that I'm there, I'm not allowed to wear anything else. When I stand down and go to sleep, I can wear a given thing. But the second I wake up, I have to be in those clothes. Just have to be. And when I go into the community, I look identical to every fireman in that community, you know, in terms of my outfit. Of course, I have a little difference, you know, my mustache, whatever, my eyes, things about me that are different.
Sure.
But when the community sees us, they know what they're expecting. It's a fireman. So if they look up from a car that's crushing them, right? Like, that's us. They can see us. They know us. Of course, we have our bunker gear, too, for firefighting. And that's all universally the same, too, right? And when you see us, you know who we are.
Yeah.
You know what we are. It's the same way with the military. If you see them, you know what they are. Same way with police. Same way with doctors. You know, it's like something about that shows what you do, who you are. And it's not so bad. I don't hate it.
Yeah, no, it's not
like,
bad.
And even if I see, you know, a group of kids from a school who are all wearing the same uniform, there's nothing bad about that either. You know, I think it's good in a lot of ways.
No,
not to say that I hate variety. I hate all these sorts of things. But everyone is different intrinsically.
Yeah.
You know, there's things they bring to the table that make them different. And in a strange way, if, like, when I was at a private school and I had to wear the same uniform as everyone else, the things that set me apart were the things that made me uniquely me.
Yeah.
It was like my hair, my eyes, my personality,
Sure.
my smile. Those things were the things that people knew about me.
But that you also don't change all the time, right?
No, you don't. Yeah, but it is different than everyone else.
It's different than everyone else.
Yeah.
But it's the same for you. And so if we're talking about, like, normal everyday clothing that you'd wear all the time, we want to even vary it for ourselves day to day. A lot of the time. A lot of the people in our society. And so maybe...
Oh, okay.
Maybe in your certain context, you don't have to be, like, in a uniform because you're not part of that, like, same group, like a firefighter or a military or whatever. But maybe you have your own uniform, and the way that you dress says something about you, but you dress that way all the time, and you don't need to change things all the time.
One thing that you just made me think about when you said that was that, like, instead of, because a lot of people I know, and I'm guilty of this too sometimes, dress to the way that they feel. But imagine if you set that standard. Like, okay, this is what I dress like, and this is the way it is when I firefight too. If I feel grumpy or sad or angry when I come into work, I look the same. And I carry myself a given way because I'm a fireman. Especially if there's community around. And especially if I have a job to do, which I always do.
Right.
Even if I'm sad or grumpy or angry or there's things going
Doesn't
on,
matter.
I'm a fireman when I go into work. You know? And imagine if you set that standard for yourself.
Yeah.
That no matter how you were going to be, you were going to raise to the person you needed to be every day. Even if you were grumpy or lazy or tired or sad or whatever. Instead of dressing to that, you know, like wearing a hoodie and sweats because you're lazy and sad and tired that day. What if instead you just dressed how you dressed? And you were ready for your day.
Dang, I've
all
definitely done that before.
I mean, I think a lot of us do, especially with the variety that we have. You know, it's like, oh, I feel super, you know, whatever tonight, I'm going to dress like this. You know, or I want to look like this, I'm going to dress like this. And we dress to how we feel, we cater to it, instead of just, like if you were a monk and all you have are your robes and your garb that you wear, you know. That's how you dress always. That's how the world then sees you always, which is probably better for you. Because even if you don't want to be, if you don't want to think about it, like, I don't want to be the monk right now, you know. But you're in the world and that's what you wear and you have to. People come up to you and be like, hey, I have a question for you.
know.
And you gotta answer.
Yeah.
That's who you are. That's what you've chosen to be.
Right. Yeah, it's, that ties into There's a lot of things going on in my head right now. Give me a second to sort it out. Okay. I think there's a lot of what we're commenting on is dancing around this idea that in our society there's been a breakdown of responsibility or obligation to behave in certain ways. Mm-hmm. Probably the most obvious and extreme example is you're a man, you're expected to behave as a man. You're a woman, you're expected to behave as a woman. But that probably started like way down the line with the idea that these paradigms don't matter, and the way that you ought to behave given what you are, you can just determine that. And not only can you determine that, but you can determine what that looks like every day, and it could be different every day, mm-hmm. because we have that power, mm-hmm. or something like that. And I think this is another one of those situations where we have seen what looks like freedom in what ends up being slavery, mm-hmm. right? So I've heard people talk about this in the context of like a backyard when you're a kid, right? If you don't know where you can't go, everything is much more like the boundaries almost free you in a certain way, right? Having that delineation makes you feel more at liberty to go, like, I can go all around here and in all of these places inside this area. Or maybe it's like a certain set of the woods or whatever it was when you were growing up. Whereas if it was like no boundaries and maybe some of the places that you could go were going to be bad for you, and all of the, like, you're almost like paralyzed by that choice. And so maybe a lot of times, even though we've liberated ourselves to the extent that we could wake up and decide to be whatever we wanted at any time. Usually what that ends up being is us deciding to be nothing and just mm-hmm. lazing around and, putting on sweats in a hoodie. And, maybe that day we could have dressed up in such a way that we'd be behaving like a tradesman. And then the next day we could dress up in such a way that we'd be in the role of a priest or whatever. Like you could do anything, but we don't. Mostly. Most of us never do.
We dress in a way, I think what you're saying, right, is that we dress more than dress, but dress is definitely a symptom of it, right?
Yeah, right.
It's
this
like
is just an example.
We dress in a way that almost we try to excuse ourselves or emancipate ourselves from responsibility or duty or obligation. Mm-hmm. And then we wear that, and that's who we become, is these people who are trying to avoid duty and obligation mm-hmm. and nobility and honor altogether, right? Whereas if I see, God bless him, if I see a cowboy in a store and I got a flat tire, and then I see a guy sitting in the corner in sweats or like ripping a vape, like he may know everything about tires, but I'm gonna ask the cowboy for help,
right?
Because there's something about that to me that's like, he's a good old boy. I bet he knows. I'll ask for his help, and I bet he'll help me, right? But imagine if, as men and women, we rose to the occasion, and in doing so dressed accordingly, but also we felt the duty and the obligation to help the world be better, mm-hmm. so that we were prepared to help the stranger, prepared to help the needy, prepared to help, in any way that we could, not that we can do everything,
sure.
But instead we oftentimes try to just avoid it altogether mm-hmm. and dress accordingly.
Yeah, definitely.
Dress in a hoodie so nobody sees us and just kind of look over here with our earbuds in and detach from the world entirely. Mm-hmm. As opposed to, like, if you want the world to be a better place, I'd sit with everything that I think I need. Maybe it's, a knife and I always have like a med kit with me, always in all of my backpacks. Mm-hmm. I'll carry that with me wherever I go. And in the past few months, I've helped a lot of strangers. Yeah. I've helped a lot of people I know, like with medical things, But specifically on the beach one day, I had just finished surfing, and I had my backpack with me, and I was just walking off from the beach, and I noticed that there was this one girl who was kind of like, she was acting strange, and as I was walking past her, I realized there was a lot of blood on her foot, and she was like super freaked out, right? Apparently, she had landed on her surfboard, sliced the bottom of her foot open, and there was a lot of blood. And she was like, oh my gosh, like, you know, she had a friend with her, and they were like, I think we got to get you to the emergency. We should call an ambulance, whatever. And I had, you know, a medical kit with me because I want to be a helpful person in the world, and it's not so expensive to do.
Yeah.
And I just was like, hey, you know, I can help you clean this, wrap it up, and then, you know, you'll be fine to go to the... I have a little bit of knowledge because I'm a fireman and a first responder, and I was like, you'll be okay. You're going to make it. Mm-hmm. It's cool. You can calm down.
Yeah.
You know, like, here's some bandages, here's some gauze, and here's some cleaning wipes. Use all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And helped her out. And she was like, oh, my gosh, like, am I going to need stitches? Is this really bad? And I was like, it's not so bad, you know. It's a lot of blood, but it's not so bad. Mm-hmm. And honestly, if you keep it clean, keep it wrapped, you'll be fine. Instead of just, you know, having my earbuds in, walking in, going home, living my own life, mm-hmm. I want to be helpful in the world. Yeah. And I need to be better about it for sure. But imagine if we all were like, you know what, when I go into the world, I don't want to be detached. I don't want to avoid people at all costs. Yeah. I personally don't like having long conversations with people all the time. Mm-hmm. It's just, I'm not like I don't want to go be social all the time. However, if I can help anyone, I'd love to. Yeah. Yeah. And if I can take in more skills, even more basic skills, so that I can help more people, well, that'd be great too.
Yeah, and there's tons of different ways that anybody might be helpful. Mm-hmm. If you decide to get really good at this way of being helpful, and then that's your identity. This all reminds me of somebody, a conversation I had with somebody in high school when I was kind of not too far into the whole Christian thing, but mm-hmm. I, was starting to sort of more publicly identify that way, and people were starting to realize, like, oh, this guy's like one of those church guys, you know, whatever. There was a friend of mine. His name was Ben Neff. I'll say his name because this is a cool thing that he said. Very interesting guy. Not Christian at all. Definitely not living like a Christian lifestyle or anything. But he was asking me about it, and he was like, why? Just why are you? What brought you there? Kind of. Or it was even a more specific and pointed question, and I wish I could remember how he worded it, because when I heard it, like, a lot of people ask things in a sort of accusatory way, but his was like a very pointed question. Like, it was a smart question. Mm-hmm. And I don't remember exactly what he asked, but I said, what I said was, if it's true that there's this person, Jesus Christ, this man that lived a perfect life, like, anything that I would do on my own is going to be so much worse than that, because it's not perfect, right? And so, knowing that there's this perfect life that was lived, I'm going to try to be more like that, participate in that to whatever degree I possibly can. Mm-hmm. And he said, and this was very wise of him to say, I think, he said, that's interesting. For me, I would just say, screw off, I'm going to be myself. And then he said, but somebody who's made that commitment like you have is probably much more interesting than I am. And much more motivated and interesting and introspective than I am. And that really stuck with me. I thought that was a very humble thing to admit and a very smart insight to have. Because I was like, and then so that's what we're talking about, right? It's like, you could just say, screw all these things, I'm going to do what I want to do whenever I want to do it. But the person that says, this is who I'm going to be, and I'm going to be this person every day, even on the days that I don't feel like it, they're probably much more integrated, much more true to themselves, almost, than you are, even if you were to just act on every impulse that, came up. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Another part of the question that you asked was like, how do we like make it a part of our life? How do we make camping, I guess, a part of our life? Mm-hmm. And we kind of ran with that. Mm-hmm. But I think simplicity is important. But I think to some degree, the Bible talks about this too, is like the eye is the lamp of the body. And in that meaning that, like, what you're aiming at needs to be good. Mm-hmm. So if you're aiming at, financial stability and you're aiming at bigger houses, nicer cars, more of a cushion beneath you, more food, more. And all the problem, and all the while, a large part of the problem is how much that you have already, right?
Sure.
You know, that's a strange place to aim. And if you're thinking like, man, I really love the idea of...
You passed me the ashtray.
Yeah, of being simple, getting back to the basics and removing distractions and those sort of things. Well, you have to start, I think, with just stop aiming at more, you know, and realize you don't need more to do those things.
Sure. Yeah.
And that maybe you even need less.
Right.
Right. But also, what are you aiming at? Because I notice I'm guilty of that too sometimes, of like, I say, you know, I'd love to just have a simple little homestead with a wife and kids and growing some crops and having some animals and working as little as I can so that I can just afford to keep that going. And then sometimes my aim isn't at that thing.
Right.
And then I'm sad I'm not there. Like, I'm sad I'm not camping, but I'm not trying to.
Yeah. We haven't
You know
even
what I'm
planned a
saying?
camping trip.
Exactly. Or like, I'm sad I don't have a homestead, but I'm not aiming at it.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you aiming at? You know, I think that has to be a big one. Is like, if you want a simple life, well, what is going to get you there? Maybe you need to buy a plot of land, right? Well, if that's the key, that's a very simple thing. That's a very, very simple thing. It's not always the easiest thing, but if that's the key, what you need to prioritize is, how do I get that key? How do I buy that key? How do I get to that key? Whether you buy it, trade it, whatever you need to do. Because the unfortunate thing is that in our society, you know, you can't just go camp in someone's backyard forever and be like, oh, I'm just getting in with nature. People are going to be like, I own this, get out of here, right? But if you think about how much money we all spend, especially as Americans, you know, if you're I heard some stat, I don't know how true it is, but it impacted me a lot. The statistic said, like, if you make more than $30,000 in America, you're in the top 1% of the world. So we live like kings, basically.
And for us, the poverty line is $30,000.
Exactly, right? So it's like, there's a strange dichotomy there of we live like kings, but also, you know, the nature of our society is so elevated and so wealthy that it's hard to even survive in it sometimes, right? But all that to say, think about how much the average price of cars is, and homes, and eating out, and perfumes and deodorants and shampoos and all these things, right? We spend thousands of dollars, most of us. Even if you're making minimum wage, you spend thousands of dollars. There's like no rent that's less than like $900. And if you have found it, great. You're still spending thousands of dollars a year, right? So it's like that's where we focus our money a lot of times. Is we focus it on cars, we focus it on houses, we focus it on savings, we focus it on the next thing we can spend it on. But if what we really want is the little plot of land, well, I mean, by golly, I've seen some acreage out in Wyoming that's like 10 grand for 20 acres, you know? Mm-hmm. It's like, if that's what you want, well, don't spend $50,000 this year on everything else you don't want. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Like, what do we, like, sure, there are some things that we kind of have to do, right? Like, if I'm going to keep working so that I can save, I do need a mode of transportation, but do it minimally, right? Like, what are we aiming at here? What are we really aiming at? Yeah. And if you just sold your car, could you afford that plot of land? Yeah. If you just, you know, sold your house, could you change the direction to what you want? You know?
Yeah, there's and I think that question, what are you aiming at, is becoming a lot more relevant. Even I think it's relevant to everybody at all times, but I think it's becoming particularly relevant to our generation because like, there's a baseline appeal. Let's not like lie about the fact that there's a baseline appeal of the life that our parents and our grandparents were aiming at, right? Mm-hmm. Of having a home where everything, you know, cooking is easy. You can be whatever temperature you want to be all year. Everything's comfortable. Your family is comfortable. You don't feel under threat all the time. Mm-hmm. You're living in a small neighborhood with a bunch of neighbors that you can hang out with and whatever. You know, you go to work for, you know, maybe 6 to 8 hours a day, 5 days of the week. You have some time to relax, whatever. Those are all, like, that seems like a pretty good life. Mm-hmm. But the threshold to achieve that now is so much higher than it was, certainly for our grandparents, even for our parents.
Mm-hmm.
And like the cost of entry is high enough that we're now reassessing, is entry worth that price?
Mm-hmm.
Is it worth the price of admission to go into that life? And like, how happy could I be in a different way? Because in one sense, if all you have to do to get that is to work a minimum wage job for a few years and retire at 50, like, that's not so bad. Like, it's not so hard to do, and it doesn't really take so much work. Maybe not even as much work as it would take you to cultivate the land and live off of it properly if you had a little plot of land. But now it takes so much work and so much money. It's like, yeah, let's reassess how valuable that actually is. Yeah, and so I feel like that. Me and my sister were talking about this over a call. Like, it feels so unachievable to do even half of what my dad did.
Yeah. I mean, me and Addison talk about that all the time too. Of like, the cost of housing and stuff. Like, we don't want to rent. You know,
yeah,
we would love
sucks.
like to own a home and raise a family in it. And what does it look like to own a home? I mean, it's like we can't do it actually. In like Charleston where we live, there was no house. There was one house for sale under $200,000, and it was only because it had been burned down.
Yeah, I was telling somebody about that. It didn't have a roof,
Yeah,
right?
and unfortunately for us, we can't afford anything more than that. I mean, we can't even afford
that
to not afford it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's
like, we can't take out an obscene mortgage and buy into the market here. We can't even afford to do that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of disappointing to us. And if you're looking about refocusing and picking your priorities,
Yeah.
we don't even have a choice.
Sure.
I work
yeah.
a decent job, and I don't even have the choice to enter
Yeah.
the market here. I
Yeah.
can't do it. It's not possible.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. The only options are for rent that we can
And
afford.
so you could, get a second, get a third job, work crazy hours, put a ton of time and money into maybe growing a business, maybe buy some properties and rent that out to somebody for obscene prices for however many years. And then maybe by the time you're 35, 40, you can buy a house and whatever. And then you're still, in order to just maintain that because you had to take out a loan to buy that house, then you're still working these obscene hours for the rest of your life, and your kids are grown up and you're still working those obscene hours. Like, yeah, that just feels so. Or, you could save up 10 grand, buy a small plot of land, try to build something small, something livable.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's sort of what camping helped us realize.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the appeals, right? Is like, you realize how little you actually need to enjoy life.
Yeah.
Or
not just to survive, but to like
really
thrive,
to live. Yeah. To like
a good
learn
life.
and
Yeah.
to study and to
Yeah.
grow. Like, I don't need anything more than the sun and a book.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need, and to cook, I don't need anything more than a fire. I mean, this.
Yeah.
If you got this,
yeah, you
you're
can make
golden.
a ton of stuff.
Yeah. So, I think.
Or, I mean, you could even let yourself, splurge a little. Get a bigger, you have your Blackstone there, whatever. You know how much you could cook on that?
So many things.
And that doesn't cost as much as a house.
Yeah.
Or even an oven.
And I think that was the beginning of us and you, kind of, all of us, getting into this idea of homesteading and stuff, because we were like, man, if we could just get a little plot of freedom.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say, and then I wasn't, but then I decided to.
Yeah.
If we could just get that little piece and work just enough to keep that piece going, what more would you need? We could afford that. We could do that. Maybe we could even do better on something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe by
so.
doing something like that, we could actually afford to have community.
Right.
We could afford to bring people in on it. We could cultivate that. Kids could grow up together. Our parents could live there.
Yeah.
Like, things like that are like, it's so appealing. It's like, man, like, it's more reasonable than buying a house. And it's not going to be exactly where you want it. That's one of the sacrifices too, of like, if you want cheap land, it won't be exactly where you want it.
Yeah.
But it can happen. You can do it. And to kind of draw back to what we were talking about earlier, simplicity is nice. It really is.
Yeah.
and it's much more peaceful, oftentimes,
Mm-hmm.
than the whirlwind of laundry and dishes and, you know,
Yeah.
all of this things that keep us busy with work and money and stresses and finances, and then all these charts that we make to try to keep up with it all because we can't.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're making so much money and spending so much money. Almost all of us need financial assistance.
Right.
Because it's like we have these little, like, economies in our households
Yeah.
of just overwhelming amounts of income and outgo that just, like, I mean, a lot of people, I mean, think about it. Even if you're making $30,000 a year and you're spending it all, like, the amount of income and outgoing, like, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. And that's, like, very minimal to most people. They're like, $30,000?
Yeah.
I spend more than that on my car loan. You know, it's like, but that's a lot of money coming in and out, and it's stressful.
Yeah.
Whereas if you remove that, you just sit
Mm-hmm.
in, like, a little quiet, peaceful, no loans, no payments. Just
Yeah, and one thing I want to point out too here, simplicity is not necessarily the same thing as asceticism. I think when a lot of people think of simplicity, they think of getting rid of anything fun or anything that they enjoy or whatever. But, like, if you listen to Cohen and what he was just saying, like, it's not, you know, what if you never played video games again or read or watched movies or did stuff outside? Like, it's what if you had to do less laundry and less dishes and had to clean less often and had to work less? Like, what if all those things that you hate doing that you're doing all the time, like, what if you downscaled all of that by downscaling your goals, you know, by not trying to get higher and higher square footage of property, by not trying to get more and more outfits, more dishes, more stuff, you know, and probably, and don't get me wrong, I think for certain seasons of your life asceticism is good and it can be helpful and everything, but it's just not what we're talking about. We're talking about something different right now. And so, like, I want to point out too, like, all of the things that you enjoy right now, like, yeah, probably it does involve getting rid of things like sitting there and scrolling or whatever things like waste your time. But you also know, like, when you, or at least when I was, and I got rid of all social media, so I don't anymore, but when I was sitting there and scrolling, I was like, man, there are about 4 things that would be easy for me to do. Like, even if for those 2 hours that I just wasted scrolling, even if I was playing Minecraft or something, I would have enjoyed myself so much more. And it's not much, you know, it's not a harder activity to do. I just, for some reason, this thing sucks me in. So, like, those types of things, yeah, you should get rid of those. And maybe you should limit, you know, your time on other things. I don't know. That's a whole other conversation. But my point is, like, those things that you can enjoy, you could integrate into your life in a healthier way and do them probably more often than you are and spend more time with the people that you love and all these things if you simplify.
Yeah.
If you simplify.
Absolutely. Like that, and I think that's one thing, too, that I've been really bad about in the past few years is, like, I'm trying to get back to the source of simple enjoyment of life. And in doing so, I've done the wrong thing many times of, like, collecting hobbies. And then before I know it, I have all these things that I've done a couple times and tried a couple times and like, and then I try to find time to do those things and draw this, paint that, take a picture of this, do this thing, make that thing, you know, all these little pieces of it. When in reality,
you always have to buy more stuff to get into those.
Yeah,
things.
It's like I could, if I just scaled it down, I'd be perfectly fine. If I got rid of all of these attractive things to me that are even attractive, like leatherworking and woodworking, and just went down to one of them, I'd be a lot better at it.
Yeah.
And I could probably do more of it. And there'd be ups and downs and stuff. And when I got bored, I'd get creative instead of getting something new.
Instead of getting something else.
Yeah. And one of the things that I've learned from scrolling that I wish I would never have learned is that it's okay to be bored. And I learned from scrolling that it's not okay to be bored. That's what it tried to teach me. That, you know, if I get bored of a video, I just scroll to the next one. If I get bored of that video, scroll to the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And then hours are gone of me just absolutely crashing my dopamine and getting far removed from boredom until I can't even achieve any sort of anything anymore. Nothing feels like I've earned it or achieved it. Whereas if I sit through something like woodworking, and I run into a problem, or I've done something and now I get bored, if I stay in that discipline of woodworking or painting or whatever it is, then I just do something different in that discipline that's creative and wakes me back up, and or I just go
Teaches
for a
you
walk
something new or whatever.
or like
Yeah,
whatever.
that's
You
the
know,
thing
it's
about
like
camping is you never really are bored. You'd think you would because
No.
you've gotten rid of everything and pretty much, and you have almost nothing. You're just in the woods, but like.
then you get creative.
Yeah, you spend maybe there's like a 30-minute period of boredom, you know, if you haven't been camping in a long time, where you're sitting there like, oh man, there's not much to do. And by not much, you mean there's not all the normal things that I would waste my time doing.
Mhm.
But then very quickly, your mind starts to be like, okay, well, there's XYZ things that need to be done, ABC things that I can do that would be fun to do. Like you start realizing how much there is in the environment, how bountiful the environment that you're in is.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're just not bored after that. You never are bored again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think camping is a great teacher, and it's a very good, and it's a good reset. It's a good callback
Mm-hmm.
to, I want to say normalcy. Not normal for us, maybe, but normal for the world,
Yeah.
for history, for humanity. And there's plenty of other things that you could do probably that would help with that. But I think camping is unique in that way.
Absolutely.
So,
So let's go camping.
let's do it. Let's plan right now while we're rolling. Let's plan it. I don't know if we're going to cut it in, but like when do you think we could go? Because we've said so many times like,
Well,
let's plan it.